yourselves. Tonight was set up as a meeting rather than a webinar, so it's not our usual format. So I'm going to ask everybody to mute themselves until such time as your application is called up, and the chair will ask for all the questions. And just please be patient, and we will work through this and allow everybody to speak in good turn.
Right. Okay, thank you. For those of you who just joined, we just finished the director's report. We were discussing the possibility of continuing via Zoom rather than in-person meetings, which is what we're leaning towards at the moment. We also approved the draft minutes of the 28th meeting, and all the members who called in have been seated for tonight's meeting. So next up, we are going to public hearing portion. First application is 2021-084. 883 Lake Avenue, William Kenny Associates, LLC for 883 Lake Avenue, LLC, care of Adam Ulrich, construction of a single-family residence, detached garage, pool cabana, patio, driveway, and associated site improvements partially within wetlands. My understanding is that the applicants have requested an extension for this. Although there's any additional documents to be read in, we should do that. And then we can also ask for public comment if there's anyone who wants to make comments at this point in time.
Okay, yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. So there are a few documents we've gotten since the last meeting. We got some site development review comments from the DPW Engineering Division on July 19th. We got a copy of a FEMA letter of map revision dated February 7th, 2008. A copy of the deed for 883 Lake Avenue with a declaration of restrictions. That was dated in October 2014. Soils report prepared by William Kenny Associates and certified by William Kenny Soil Scientists dated May 28th, 2021. A bridge construction sequencing narrative also prepared by William Kenny Associates dated July 21st, 2021. A wetland and watercourse assessment report prepared by William Kenny and Carolyn Matthews of William Kenny Associates dated July 21st. A plan entitled Wetland and Buffer Habitat Enhancement Planting Plan prepared by William Kenny Associates dated July 21st. Email correspondence between the director and town council John Wetmore dated July 21st, and a staff report that I prepared on July 21st.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add, Bob, or we should just ask if there's any public comment at this point?
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Is there any public comment for application 2021-084, 883 Lake Avenue at this time? It will be continued till next month as well. So Pat, I'm not sure how you're going to, someone will have to physically turn on the camera and raise their hand, I guess. Okay.
So I'm gonna,
there's no public
Bob,
comment.
do we need to have a vote to continue?
I don't think so, and I think the applicant is the one that authorizes the agency to extend its reviews. So I think that's all we need.
Okay.
First 35 days is up August 2nd, it says here.
Now, can I ask a procedural question while we're at this point of asking for public comment? Because we're in a meeting, I don't see any place to raise a hand.
No.
So I think we're going to have ground rules of how people can sort of like chirp up and say they want to say something.
Pat, do you have visuals on all of the on the entire gallery, so if someone does
Now,
raise. their hand-
interestingly, I only have you guys. Ah, Carol, I mean, Doreen.
Just checking, yeah. Yeah, I see it.
If you go
Yeah,
to
I
the
see
list
that.
of participants, there's a raise hand thing there. I suppose that,
That's a clap. So,
Under reactions, you can press on reactions and press raise a hand if you want. Under reactions on the bottom of your screen.
thank you. Yes. So reactions, bottom right tab, little smiley face with a plus in his head. And there's a raise hand feature. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. We don't have any public comments on this. Let's go to the next. Application 2021-105, 18 Stonehenge Drive South, SC Minor and Company, Inc. for Phoebe and Gregory Slater, construction of residential additions, driveway, pool, patio, septic system, and drainage system, designation of septic reserve area, and installation of culvert and watercourse. Pat and Jen, please. This has also been
Jen?
requested for an extension, but I believe we need to read in the documents tonight.
Yes, Jen's got those ready to go.
Okay.
Record of documents, a completed application with supported documentation by Larry Liebman, SC Minor, dated June 24th, 2021. Plans entitled Proposed Site Development Plan Phoebe Slater and Gregory Slater by SC Minor, dated June 21st, 2021. Drainage Summary Report prepared by SC Minor, dated June 21st, 2021. Soils Report by JMM Wetland Consulting, James McManus, dated June 13th, 2021. Revised plans, also by SC Minor, revision dated July 15th, 2021. Revised project narrative by Larry Liebman, SC Minor, July 16th, 2021. DPW comments by Juan Paredes, dated July 16th, 2021. And staff report by Patricia Sesto and Jen Urena, dated July 19th, 2021. And yes, they'd like to take delay in action.
Okay, thank you. So is there any public comments at this time on 18 Stonehenge Drive South? Please make yourself known by raising your hand or turning on your camera.
Not seeing any hands raised. If I'm missing somebody, just speak up. Okay,
Okay, I think that is a no. So first 35 days is up in
yeah, we're fine to get
end of
through to
August,
next week.
so we are good on that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Next, we have two consent approvals tonight, 2021-095, 48 Pexman Road, and 2021-085, 50 La France Road. Any agency questions or comments on the consent approvals tonight?
I don't know.
I'm a little confused as to what's going on with 50 La France. The draft agenda indicated a request for an as-of-right determination, and that doesn't seem to be the case now.
So that's still the case. They are able to have those paddocks as of right. I had asked that they give us a 100-foot buffer from the offsite wetland, which they've provided. They're going to vegetate that with a meadow mix and use the paddock fencing as the demarcation.
Okay, Doreen, I was under the impression that the agency had to make an as-of-right determination before they can go ahead and do that. Is that the case?
So they submitted the application materials, and basically what they are looking to do is as of right under our regulations. So that's been outlined in the staff report and for you to make a determination on.
So in effect, this is an after the fact request for a permit need determination. Because if I correct, Doreen, you went out there, you found activities that appeared to have been a violation. Violation was issued. They clarified that this was an an agricultural use. They've subsequently came in with the application for that determination, and which is why I think that the corrective action is part of the description here.
That's correct, yes.
Let's see, got a hand raised. Bob, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, I just wanted to let the vice chairman know that there've been horse activities on this property for many years. The agency's looked at a number of applications related both to the horse activities and other activities. So they were renovating their paddocks, and they decided to go fence line to fence line with the one over near this offsite wetland, which was not necessarily, the sort of a renovation of an existing activity. So that's why we brought them in.
I wasn't really questioning whether it is an as of right. I'm questioning whether it should be a consent approval as an as of right, or whether it should be something that is brought forward for the agency to actually vote on.
You actually do vote. The consent approvals are your vote. So those are different than the agent approvals.
Yeah, I understand that. The consent approvals, however, don't generally get the same sort of attention that applications that are not consent approvals do.
By the agency, I would say that's a fair statement. So if you would prefer to hear more about this, you can certainly request to your fellow members to have it moved.
No, I've heard enough.
Okay, but I think that, so what I think you're saying, Ellie, is that going forward, if there is something that involves a determination, and as of right, that should probably default to the main agenda.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now I'm perfectly happy with now that I understand what it is, I'm perfectly happy of approving it as a consent approval. But as Brian says, for future reference.
Will do.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Is there a motion on the consent approvals?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Klaus seconds. Okay, Patricia, could you call the roll, please?
Is there anyone in opposition to the motion? Passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. Next is application 2021-063, 100 Old Church Road, Rocco V. DeAndrea, Inc. for Ralph Adorno, demolition and construction of a single-family residence, driveway, pool, retaining walls, and drainage within and adjacent to wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
All right, the agency looked at this last month. Oh, I'm sorry, they looked at it in May, and there were a number of concerns raised, which are itemized in the supplemental staff report. The revisions which have been made since May include reorientation of the house and pool, which allows for greater separating distance between the house and wetland. Now it's 63 feet versus the previous 48 feet.
I'm sorry, Bob, just one second. Can we share the revised plan on the screen?
This is the revised plan.
Is there, maybe I just don't have the right view here. Oh, there it is, never mind. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. They're going to be cutting a little bit deeper into the hillside behind the house and pool, which allows the house to be situated lower in the landscape than it previously had been. This also, I think, helps to make it so that they don't need to raise the driveway over the wetland crossing, which was an issue not only for us because of the proximity of retaining walls that were needed, but it was an issue for DPW. So this has sort of addressed both of our concerns in one thing. And added a second retaining wall down to the east of the house, which helps to control, catch the grade to the east of the house and reduces the need or eliminates the need for any further grading to the east of that lower retaining wall. So there's a lot less fill, a lot less, uncontrolled slope adjacent to the wetland. Let's see. Another concern raised was about the erosion control plan. The applicant has given us some additional information about that. And I think this is one of those projects that is worth having a site meeting between the applicant's contractor and staff before activities get going, because as most of these projects go, the engineers and staff have ideas. The contractor is going to be the implementer and also usually have ideas of how they can best do things. So we can get a phased erosion control plan worked out at that pre-construction meeting. Since the staff report was prepared, we have received the biological narrative that was sent to you in your packets. We also have received a planting plan for the 15-foot wide buffer strip that includes a number of understory trees and actually a couple of canopy trees and a couple of dozen shrubs. So it's it will definitely enhance what is now a very rough lawn. And it also, I believe, includes the demarcation feature that was recommended in the staff report. So I think the outstanding issues have been addressed. I would recommend the agency issue a permit with the conditions in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clausy. Does anyone from Mr. D'Andrea's office wish to speak or add to what Bob has said?
Yes, sir. Robert Natali from Rocco D'Andrea's office. We've reviewed the staff report, and I think all the proposed changes, as Bob said, address the agency's concerns. So if you have any other questions, we can try to work from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Matt Pop, landscape architect. The planting plan does include the boulder demarcation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pop.
You're welcome.
Okay, very good. Are there agency questions or comments on the plan as it stands today?
Yeah, Brian, what's the condition of the slope between the lower wall and I guess that's the yellow must be the demarcation? Is it regular grass or what?
Yeah, it's grass, but the closer you get to the wetland, the less grassy it is and the more sort of mossy and, it becomes. So I think up to the left or west of that yellow line, it's turf grass, and it has been maintained as that over, time looking at the aerial photos.
The only tree that's there, again, Matt Pop, is a crab apple, and I think there's 2 ash. The ash are probably going to end up dying soon. But other than that, as Bob said, it's kind of maintained right up to the edge of the watercourse on the left side, the west side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Anything else, Jay?
No.
Okay. Any other agency questions or comments? No? Okay. Is there public questions or comments on this application at this time? Please raise your hand or speak up.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, very good. Would someone like to make a motion on this application?
Do a motion to approve with the conditions listed.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Jay seconds. Pat, can you call the roll, please?
Is there anyone opposed to the approval? Okay, the approval is unanimous, 600.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up Next up is 2021-076, 797 Lake Avenue, Alberto Gonzalez. For construction.
979. Lake.
I'm sorry, 979 Lake Avenue. Alberto Gonzalez for construction of a pool, spa, and deck 7 feet from wetlands. I understand they are requesting a delay on this. No?
I'm not aware of that. They submitted
okay.
a lot of new information today, which
Okay.
I forwarded to the members as soon as I got it. And I know Mr. Gonzalez is on the call, so he may have something to say.
Okay.
So,
Turn it over to you, Bob.
yeah, I think Mr. Gonzalez has made a pretty intense effort to address the comments he received in the staff report, which was dated July 20th. He has gotten a wetland scientist out to the property this weekend who prepared a environmental assessment report, a mitigation planting plan, and some other recommendations which we can discuss, or Mr. Gonzalez can introduce to the for the agency. He's also submitted some more details on the exact model of pool that he's proposing to install, which gives more details as to the construction methodology. Again, I think he's here. He could probably address that well. He's gotten a revised site plan that identifies 9 trees in the vicinity of where the pool and deck are proposed. The trees are not identified more than located. They're basically located. None of them have species. None of them have diameters. So it's a little hard to say, how these trees might be impactful to a pool as far as shading goes. But in that regard, he's submitted a shading study. Looks like Google Earth or Bing Maps. 10 a.m., 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. On June 15th, July 15th, and August 15th for that portion of his property where the pool and patio deck are proposed. And so he's submitted quite a bit of new information. I recommend the agency still delay this. We have 1 more month to consider it. And since this information came in very recently, like today, this afternoon, Mr. Gonzalez is welcome to orient the agency to the key points of it and address any other comments in the staff report or comments of the agency. And then, we'll be back toward the end of August to take the final look at this.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anything for the applicant?
Gonzalez, you can unmute yourself. You can go ahead and speak with the agency.
Yes, good evening to all. Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. Yes, basically, I mean, we took into consideration every single one of the director's recommendations and were included on the plan. The shade analysis was done to prove that the place that it was selected for the project, it has sunlight almost at all times, and that's perhaps the only place in the entire property that has that characteristic. One other thing is that the soil scientists that came to do the narrative and assess the whole property said that there is 1 tree that is dead and it needs to come out. It's stated on his report. but other than that, everything else was addressed, I believe. Since it was requested just to provide more specs on the pool and the pool type and all that, that was also provided. And what I wanted to say, which is, that at some point it was brought, the idea that there was not a survey for this. I mean, there was an old survey, but not a wetland survey. This person that came also took some measurements and corrected some of the things that were there. And that is also stated in the report. But the good news is that, I think that the distance to the place where the pool is going to be, I think it's 11 or 18 feet. I don't remember exactly, but I have it here. So it's a little bit more distance than there was what it was before. And then the other thing is that he said that he said this to me, and he somehow wrote it in the report, but he said that the lawn already has some erosion there, two places of erosion, and he thought that the pool would actually help to mitigate that. As the director proposed, also some mitigation plan was in place, and we're going to go ahead with that if the project is approved. And in regards of the survey, what I wanted to tell everybody is that I called right now, 5 different companies, surveyors, and they don't even, none of them reply, answer my calls, or everybody seems to be very busy. I spoke with 2 soil scientists to recommend someone to do this. They said that nobody wants to take any jobs, and it's, that everybody's too busy now to do that. And also, the soil scientist told me that in this particular case, and I believe some of the members of the agency have seen the property, it's very straightforward that the project is going to be on the lawn, and it seems to be clear that the boundaries. I also wanted just to address the fact that as I think I mentioned it in the prior meeting, is that when Bob recommended back then that perhaps I could go where the soil scientist place the flags and then just place some rebars with some, and I did that on all the properties. It's been done for a few months. And the last thing I want to say is that we actually did a tremendous effort to try to do this on time, because the letter I received I think sometime last week with all these things, and worked really hard just with the hope that this project will be approved. Not that much for the pool, which of course that it's important, but also because we do need to move forward with the septic system as soon as possible. So the system is limping along, with the help of but it's being removed from the tank. It's a lot of stuff going on. So we would need to be able to do that. So I kindly ask, the agency to consider providing an approval, at least just to start, signing off on the septic, and we can start with that, if not the whole project. But that's all. That's all I want to say. And give me a break on the survey if possible. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening and considering this project.
Okay, to follow up on what Mr. Gonzalez just said, in Matt Davidson's report on page 3, he states that in measuring from the wetland edge to the staked location of the deck and the pool, he gets 11 feet to the deck and 18 feet to the pool. Another thing that I looked up today, I went on to the website for this Hydra Pool company that makes this prefab pool, and it seems that you need to over excavate about 2.5 feet beyond the inner edge of the pool in order to be able to set it up and establish it. So we'd be talking, the excavation would be, what's that, 15.5 feet to the wetland if the pool's 18 feet from the wetland. Just as to give you some context.
Bob, is that, having been out there this afternoon with Joe Rogers, is that measurement to the closest flag or the wetland boundary?
To the closest flag.
So that, because it doesn't feel like it's 18 feet. Or
Bob, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused here. I mean, we really need a plan that shows the wetland boundary. There are stakes in the ground. I don't know who put them there. I thought I read somewhere it was Jay Fain. Now I'm hearing some other name. I want to know who did it, where's this report, and where the wetland boundary is on this map, so we can actually tie it together without, supposition. So that's one. The other thing, I think you're exactly right in terms of the construction of the pool is going to require digging much closer to the wetland boundary, wherever that is. And we need to know what that construction activity is and how you protect the wetland. As far as I can tell from what's being suggested here, this is one of these stainless steel fabricated pools, and it's got to have a lining. I'm assuming it has to have a lining because I don't see from the pictures that I see that would be watertight. So if it has a lining, you have a risk that lining could get torn somehow, but it'll last forever. If that happens, where does that water go? And it's swimming pool water. Now, I did see somewhere that there's a way in which they're going to drain this pool into the stormwater system. Is that, am I making this up, or did I dream this, or is that correct? And is that legit?
Yes, I mean, that is correct. Yes, it was the storm trap was designed not only for the house, but also for the pool in case that something like that would happen. And yes, you are absolutely correct. It will be a liner on the pool. It's exactly that, the panels and the liner. Yeah.
Okay, so what my concern is, I mean, I'm assuming if you have to empty that pool, you can put it into the storm drain. Is that a given? I'm not sure that that's a given, but I just,
Can I explain a couple of things, Joe?
Absolutely.
Number one, soils report was done by Jay Fain. It's in the file that was submitted with the application.
Yep.
The flags that are out there were set by Mr. Fain. Mr.
Okay.
Gonzalez took rebar and pounded it right below each of the flags at my suggestion, so that if a flag disappears, at least there's still a record. He doesn't have to get a Jay Fain back to put those flags out.
Okay.
The drainage from the pool and the spa, it's a requirement of the drainage manual that in the event that there's some huge storm and the freeboard of the pool is overwhelmed by rainwater, there's a place for the water, the overflow, to go. We have, with these projects now, we're pushing people to pick up some roof area to go to the infiltrator system as well, because 99.9% of the time, there's never going to be anything in the infiltrator because the pool's hardly ever going to overflow. But the roof is always going to shed hot water and et cetera, right down through the leader into the wetland. So that's what that setup is. It's basically a requirement of the drainage manual. And DPW does agree with us that getting some roof in there is a benefit, and they're supportive of that approach. When the pool has to be drained, there are specifications put out by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection as to the chemical content of the water, where it is acceptable to drain a pool into a wetland or a watercourse, because it's become the chemical makeup has gotten neutralized to the point where that's something that it's acceptable. Pool maintenance companies are required to follow those guidelines. So the pool cannot be drained into this infiltration system. It's way too small. So I'm guessing if the pool's ever drained, once the chemicals are either made inert by time or neutralized, then it's going to be drained onto the ground, and eventually it'll make its way right to the wetland.
Well, okay, I appreciate that. I would still like to suggest that even although those things are pounded into the ground there, and we saw them, that they be translated onto this plot plan, so we have a record of where the line is, and not just rely upon flags that Jay Fain put in. So I think that needs to be added. And I mean, what happens if there's a tear in that lining? You're saying, oh, it's fine because the pool is going to be neutralized. I'm not so sure that that's always the case. So what's the backup for that? Should there be some sort of way to capture? It's a low point, unfortunately, so I don't know what the hell you do, but you could maybe put a sump pump in there and capture it and then pump it back out. But how do you protect it? I mean, are you telling me that, you know, the pool people are always going to keep that pool at the pH and the conditions that are perfectly acceptable to go into the wetland? Is that, I mean, I guess if we believe that, then. Well,
No, that's not really what I said, Joe. When the pool has chemicals in it, it's not acceptable to discharge the water to a wetland.
Well, and
so if there's a rip in the liner, yeah, I mean, I guess that's different than draining a pool in the proper way.
Exactly. And so how do you protect against that? Anyway, so I think we need a few more
Yeah, I think
some
that
more information, and I appreciate Mr. Gonzalez's efforts to put this all together. It's a non-trivial exercise, and I appreciate it. But this is something that I think we need to tidy up some of these loose ends so that we fully understand what we're getting into, and that we are protecting against any potential downsides that could possibly happen.
Right. Okay, thank you, Joe. Bob, I know is recommending a delay on this. Are there, before we go forward, is there any other agency questions at this point?
Relative to the septic, is the septic failing?
No, the septic is not failing, but you know, it's it needs to be replaced because the leaching fields are clogged and with dirt and stuff, so it's not working properly. And then, you know, we were trying to replace it. I mean, the idea to replace it started as soon as I bought the property, but then this project came up, and then it was tied to the wetland. But yes, no, it's not failing right now, but it could fail at any moment.
Okay, well, is there a way that we can grant an emergency approval for the septic replacement only?
We have an application before us that includes the septic system, so we wouldn't necessarily have to approve it on an emergency basis. But the question then is,
Do a partial approval?
Right.
We can't do that, nope.
Okay, well then I guess what we have to hope, Mr. Gonzalez, is that, I think we're leaning towards this going into next month, that if between now and then your septic does begin to fail, then that becomes an emergency situation, in which we'd be able to probably pull that out of this application under those circumstances. But from what I'm hearing is that it's currently still functional.
Yes, it is.
We hope to have this wrapped up in 30 days if we can get to consensus regarding the pool.
Okay. One thing I want to say, and I apologize because I don't quite understand all the drawings and the concept, but I do believe, because we did mark with precision the boundaries, and I believe that they are included on the plan. I'm just saying that because, Bob, maybe you can help me on this, but we did include the boundaries. I thought that we did, but on all this information, and it's hard for me to understand, but the engineer told me that he was including the boundary, because was one thing that it was requested to me a few months ago. So we did that. I thought we did.
Well, yes, Mr. Davidson sketched in the wetland boundary on his version of your site plan, so that's in his report. And I would say that, based on my observation of the wetland and the topography on this site plan, that wetland boundary is probably fairly close to what a surveyor might get. I mean, it's not a survey accurate boundary by any means. But
where does the topography come from on this?
Exactly. That was the question.
Yeah. So, Mr. Gonzalez, do you know where the topography on this map comes from?
The one on the plan?
Yeah.
I think it was a combination of the GIS map that with, and what we did is with the a GPS, and a measuring tape will just, confirm every measure or to the wetland boundary that it was marked. So we did a combination of things just to be as accurate as possible. Actually, we did it in like 3 different stages.
So it's not surveyed wetlands there. So you took GIS information and overlaid it.
Overlaid it, yes, and then corroborated what we were doing. We including that we used a drone with the GPS, and we did multiple things in order just to try to be as accurate as possible. In fact, the measurement that we took, was what the soil scientists came and rectified. The one that is closest to the pool and to the deck, because my measurement or our measurement was a little bit, there was a discrepancy that it was in favor of more space, not less. But
that's too, yeah. Well,
no. But again, it was just a few feet, and that was the only one. The rest, I think, he coincided. All the others, in fact.
I'll say it does, with things being so tight out there to the wetland, it does give me pause not to have the surveyed wetland boundary, not to have a standard of topography that our regulations call for. It troubles me.
Okay, I appreciate
the maps. The maps are meant to stand on their own, so you shouldn't have to look at a map and then review what's put in writing and then go out into the field. Every document should stand on its own and tell its own full story. And the map doesn't do that.
I understand and obviously respect your point of view. I just want to say that I call quite a few people to try to get a survey, and everybody's very busy. And this project has been taking a long time. Also, for what it's worth, I know, I already spent more than $10,000 on fees, and it looks like it's a never-ending thing. So I feel a little bit overwhelmed. And also on top of that, what I also want to say is that, and I know some of you have been in my property, but I invite any one of you just to come, and I would love to be here just to show. I mean, it seems really black and white where the pool and the deck is going to be, and where the wetland is, and I don't know. I'm very respectful of doing things in the right way, but even the stream of water there is so tiny, so little, so this is not a river or anything. So that's why I say the combination, at least please take it into consideration. Please take it into consideration. That's all I'm saying. Or perhaps, maybe when the surveyors are a little bit less busy, then I can commit to do it back, then, and maybe show the pool, maybe show the whole project finished then with the survey, so that the agency can have it.
So the idea is that we see the information up front so that the agency knows what they're approving after the fact obviously can be problematic, where there was assumptions made because there was lack of information, and then you come to find out after the fact that it's not what was
Okay.
expected.
Okay, I don't want to, I don't mean to be argumentative, but
No,
I
no,
just,
no, I understand it, and I do
Understand your
appreciate,
frustration.
it's a tough,
no, and
all
also,
the work that you put into that. I do appreciate that.
thank you. No, and the last thing I want to say is, I would even say that, if anybody, perhaps the most critical person in the agency could pay a visit to the property, and I will show them, just because I think that will be seen. I understand that you guys need to move on objective basis, but what I'm saying is, if you guys want to move it even closer, and then they said, okay, assume that it's a feet here, still there is plenty of room to do what I'm trying to accomplish. That's all I'm saying. So please
Did you
consider.
submit any alternatives that might have had smaller decking or a smaller pool?
This
that
is
would give
a
more
fairly
room?
small. It's a fairly small pool. I mean, I can consider a small deck, but the deck, just to be clear, on the edge of the wetland, the deck, it's only 1 foot. It's only 1 foot. So there is
Right.
no. So it's nothing on that edge. So the deck is on the other side of the pool, and the pool is fairly small. So I actually originally I considered to do a bigger pool, but then I decided that, I realized that it wasn't room, and exactly because we didn't want to go through a lot of. It never really occurred to me that this would be such a cumbersome project, but it is what it is. I mean, now we are, we are here, but. Anyway, it's fine. I mean, I thank you for listening, and maybe you can consider it. As I said last time, this started as I separated recently. I have 4 sons. I live with them. I tried to do this as a fun family project. We actually were going to do some of the work ourselves, and now it turned into a huge project that honestly I wasn't even prepared to find. It was financially I didn't budget it. So that's what actually happened. It is what it is. But I need a little break somewhere at some point, please.
Well, can I leave you with one thought to follow up on what the director mentioned about alternatives? And it's an alternative. I don't know if it's an acceptable alternative to you or the agency, but perhaps a completely above ground pool would be something that would be you could fit in here a little better. But like I said,
okay,
I don't issue the permits, and I'm just suggesting it as an alternative.
I really appreciate your idea, Bob. I just want to comment on that. So this pool actually will be somehow above ground. In the part that it goes to the wetland, it will be higher. And a totally above pool, we think that it will really deteriorate the value of the property. So that's why we didn't want to go that route. And actually I did speak with a few people about that because it was something that we considered it originally. But thank you for the idea. I appreciate that. All I can say is that I will do everything, to take every single precaution, because that's actually the way I do things in general, just to take good care of the wetlands. I'm proud to be part of this community, but.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. I guess
right.
what I'd say is if there's any of the engineers listening tonight, and if you have Mr. Gonzalez is calling your office, you know the background on the project at this point, and perhaps you can help him out by getting out there to do the survey that he needs to move forward on this. Any other agency questions or comments?
I'd just like to request that Mr. Gonzalez specifically address the points raised by Joe Rogers this evening in his next response. And that insofar as possible, that response be filed, not well before, but at least a few days before the hearing so that we can read it.
Very good. Is there a motion on this?
I don't think we need a motion.
You need a motion to delay.
Oh, I think you just
No?
continue.
Okay, we just, oh, that's right, we don't do that. Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Gonzalez, hopefully surveyor will be reaching out to you or will respond to your calls.
All
Sure.
right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay,
Good night.
moving along. We have, sorry, this other screen up here. New applications for review, 2021 -092, 10 Stallion Trail, SC Minor Inc. for Donald Altieri and Carolyn Ugis. Construction of the residential addition, designation of septic reserve area, and installation of wetland and buffer enhancement plantings in and adjacent to wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
Right. The agency approved the exact same footprint for a residential addition back in 1998. That permit was never activated by the property owners, the same property owners, and expired. Let's see. So I think this is a very straightforward application regarding the addition. Most of it's going to be built over an existing parking spot, so the impervious increase is quite small. The change in the plan this time around is the health department made them show that they have space for a septic reserve, which is in the front, partly covered by the driveway, and it's I believe it's over 60 feet to the closest wetlands. So I think this is also pretty straightforward. The couple issues on the property, however, there was with that 1998 permit a requirement that a buffer demarcation feature be installed around the south and southwest part of the backyard. Because the permit was never activated, that condition never sort of came into effect, but I would recommend the agency apply that again. And I've attached a copy of that 98 plan to your staff report with the approved demarcation feature highlighted. Something along these lines I think would be needed. The deer fence that is currently around the back of the property was not noted previously by staff, but it doesn't appear to be a new deer fence. So I don't know whether that's because in 1998, the staff didn't really, maybe it was old back in 98, I don't know, but they didn't raise it or, but now that we have a sort of standard that the bottom of the mesh be raised 6 inches off the ground, I think that should be applied to this deer fence. And that should be applied whether or not the rest of the project is implemented. So that would be one of these things that happens regardless. There are a couple other minor issues on the property that I've provided conditions to address. So I would recommend the agency issue a permit with the conditions in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Larry Lieben from SC Minor. We have no objection to anything that's written in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Liebman. Any agency questions for Larry tonight? Any public questions or comments on this application?
No hands.
No? Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, motion to approve with the standard conditions and special conditions listed.
Okay, is there a second?
Who was that? Is that Elliot?
Second.
That was Klaus.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 6-0-0.
Good, let's go on.
Thank you. Okay, next up is application 2021-096, 436 Stanwich Road, Fairfield County Engineering LLC for Tariq Saleh. Apologize if I butchered your name. construction of a single-family residence, driveway, pool, patio, septic system, and drainage 29 feet from wetlands.
Mr. Rogers was out to the site today.
Okay, thank you. The activities that are 29 or 30 feet from the wetlands are actually the removal of some of the ledge rock outcroppings to the north and west of the house that they want to build. The house itself is shown 80 feet from the wetlands, and everything else is at least 60 feet. Unfortunately, there are a couple of items that are pretty important that are incomplete in this application that are itemized in the staff report. The applicant and his engineers have been informed of this, and I know they're working on it. So I'd recommend the agency delay this evening. I would point out to the agency that this house, I'm sure Mr. Rogers can vouch for this, the existing house is in really rough shape. It's not occupied at the moment, but it's not really secure. So I think it's a hazard, and the applicant would like to take it down. Staff have tentatively given Mr. Sala permission to do that on a sort of an emergency basis. It is well removed from the wetland, and we have specified protective measures that have to be put in place for the wetland during the operation. So the house may not be there if you go out next month, but hopefully the information will be submitted by then and we can look at the new house application.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anyone from the applicant wish to add to Bob's comments?
Wayne DeVanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. No, nothing really to add other than that we are diligently working on revising the drainage report and plan, and hope to have that for you before the next meeting.
Terrific, thank you. Any agency questions or comments on this at this point? No public questions or comments?
No hands raised.
All right, so we will delay until next month. Thank you. Next up is 2021-099, 140 Indian Head Road, Rocco v. DeAndrea, for Jerry Wu and Elizabeth Hung for construction of residential addition, pool house, patio, and drainage system 53 feet from wetlands. Mr. Salzer, please.
There are a lot of activities proposed here, but they're pretty well removed from the wetland, number one, and number two. There is an existing demarcation feature at the back of the lawn backyard that is pretty plain. At the time I wrote my staff report on July 7th, there were some questions and outstanding information that was needed. The applicant has submitted everything that was I felt was outstanding regarding the erosion controls, the stockpile area, the buffer planting plan, and so that has been taken care of. And DPW Engineering Division on July 23rd sent back their comments based on the revised plans. They say that the drainage system is acceptable. So the additional information has been submitted. DPW finds the drainage acceptable, and I recommend the agency issue a permit.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anything from the applicant to add to this? Anyone from Mr. DeAndrea's office that wishes to speak?
Hi, yes, Brian Smith from Rocco v. DeAndrea's office. How are you?
Good.
We've read and reviewed the special conditions and the standard conditions laid out within the staff report, and we reviewed those with the owners, and we have no objections to them at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any agency questions on this application or for the applicant? No? Public questions or comments? Pat?
No.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve with the special conditions provided.
And Mr. Rogers made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Okay, Mr. Schoendorf, second.
Any opposed? Carry 600.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next is 2021-101, 188 Bedford Road, Environmental Land Solutions LLC for Alfredo Catalic, corrective action for unpermitted clearing in a wetland. Ms. Urena, please.
In February 2020, a violation was found where approximately 15 trees were removed in wetland and upland areas without prior authorization. The application to correct proposes 16 trees be planted to restore the impacted wooded wetland. It is recommended the trees removed be replaced in a 2-to-1 ratio with a total of 30 trees to be installed. The applicant proposes a demarcation feature boulders to delineate the limit of lawn from the west meadow. The proposed boulders are located at the pre-existing limit of the lawn rather than the wetland delineation. It is recommended the boulders are implemented to be aligned with wetland flags 2 to 13 accordingly as part of the mitigation plan. This would expand and better protect the centrally located wet meadow and the wooded wetland in the rear from future disturbance. Removal of landscaping debris in upland areas and planting 7 native shrubs were also proposed. Issuance of an order to correct with the following special conditions outlined is recommended.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Any questions or, well, anyone from the applicant wish to add anything?
Good evening, Matthew Pop, Landscape Architect, Environmental Land Solutions. I prepared the plan before you. We would like to keep the boulder demarcation kind of at the edge of the existing lawn where it was originally. And then just as the plan showed, or maybe somewhere in between that area and the wetland line. Where the wetland is, it currently is a lawn. It's kind of the only level spot in the yard. There's a trampoline down there, which I think will get removed. So again, we'd just like to keep the boulder demarcation at the edge of the existing wet meadow. The other thing is to note is, again, we just like to make sure that there's some woody debris that's left over in the wet meadow. We just like to take that out so that it's could be easily maintained with a yearly cutting. That's near the center of the site.
Okay. Agency questions for Mr. Pop on this? So let me understand where on the map, can Doreen maybe you could point out.
The real question is whether or not the agency feels that the boulders right now are at the pre-existing limit of the lawn. So there was some lawn between the wetter meadow and the wetland delineation. So it was pre-existing lawn, but it is within the wetland flags. My recommendation was to place the boulder demarcation along the wetland flags rather than where the wet meadow starts, which is what Mr. Pop is proposing, to leave it as proposed.
Or maybe some combination in between, maybe maybe moving that boulder row, 10 or 15, maybe 10 feet, I guess, to the east, and that would be split the difference. It is currently a lawn area, so.
So what you're saying, Mr. Pop, is that with the relocation of the boulder demarcation, that runs through where the trampoline currently is?
I think the trampoline might be just on the outside of the wetland.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would just say move the boulder demarcation, 10 feet to the right, to the east of showing, and that's kind of splits that a difference.
but the boulder demarcation doesn't necessarily interfere with where the trampoline is currently, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter. So it could be moved and the trampoline could still function. Could it
Yeah,
not?
they could move. Yeah, they could move the, yes, they could triple, yes.
Okay, so I guess I would go with Mr. Rena's recommendation then. Thoughts from other members of the agency on this request? No? Okay. Would someone like to, any public questions or comments on this? Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
Well, before that, Brian,
Yes.
Jen, do we need to modify the language in special condition 1 then to cover what was just been discussed?
If the agency feels the compromise is acceptable, that midway point, rather than not the wetland flag, but I think he said about 10 feet off of what was proposed on the plans, I can change condition 1 to reflect that.
Well, yeah, I don't think I was suggesting that we move the demarcation. I was just clarifying that the trampoline would still function as is regardless of where the demarcation was, so that it would stay as you proposed.
All right, yeah, so then I can reflect that if we're leaving it as proposed.
So we're going to leave that language as is.
So not as proposed by you, Jen.
Yes, so I would change it from reflecting
as proposed by Jen,
and just the plan itself.
so it's as the conditions state.
Would it be possible to specify the number of trees and the conditions?
That we're proposing or that were removed?
It is recommended, it says in the report, it is recommended that the trees removed be replaced on a 2-to-1 ratio with a total of 30 trees to be installed.
Yeah, so condition number 1, where I said staff recommendation within the restoration plan and demarcation feature, I can split that up a bit. So it's just staff recommendation for the restoration plan and the demarcation as is, as proposed.
It is a fairly nice wet meadow, or it is nice. So, the more trees you put in, you kind of lose that, the wet meadow aspect of it. I think all the trees were taken out kind of on the north end where I showed them to be replaced. And then those circles are probably, 15-foot diameters, maybe. So you can see it's fairly will be fairly well wooded at the north end while keeping that middle section open as a wet meadow.
So what's your tree count, Mr. Pop?
It's probably about a 1-to-1, I think.
It's about a 1-to-1. Yeah, 15.
And you're proposing a 2-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a bit more conservative than some of our other. We have a 15-foot grid outline where total diameter lost, and the 2-to-1 was a bit more conservative in my opinion. But again, I wanted to feel out the agency on that.
2-to-1 is the norm, or 6 inches or 1 tree for every 6-inch DBH lost. And these were mature trees, Jen?
They were large, yes.
Yeah, for the most part.
So it would seem that you should be able to fit 2-to-1 in there and still maintain the meadow.
Okay, so I guess that I would suggest then that the demarcation stay as proposed by Ms. Urena, and that the tree ratio be reflected on a 2-to-1 basis, with details to be worked out, final details and placements to be worked out with staff.
So my intent would again to be place most of those trees at the north end while kind of keeping that meadow still open.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess that's would be my motion if someone wants to second it.
I'll second that.
Okay, very good.
Anyone opposed? Carries 0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is application 2021-102, 35 Dunwoody Place, SC Minor and Company, Inc. for Mabel Balestra, construction of residential addition and deck and modification of a driveway 12 feet from wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
Okay, the 12-foot number is basically the little adjustments that are being made to the driveway, an area of pavement being removed and another area of pavement being added so that the driveway will match the new layout of the south side of the house. The main activity, however, is the work on the house, and that's pretty well removed from the wetland. They're proposing a double line of silt fence tight to the driveway, which should be very, fine protection for the wetland during construction. The site is pretty level between the house and the wetland. The plan before you was the revised plan that the applicant submitted after reading the July 13th staff report. I did point out in the staff report that there was an unresolved clearing violation from the 2004. So I felt that the initial planting plan around the wetland was inadequate to address both mitigation for this activity and the correction of the clearing violation. This plan here has 65 shrubs or so, and I think the original plan had 14. So it's a pretty well beefed up plan and will provide a better buffer for the wetland than previously proposed. I'd also point out in this revised plan, they added some work at the north end of the house. It's not really, what is it? It's a deck and a porch with a hot tub. So it's really, again, not major construction as far as ground disturbance that would be required. So I don't, and it's, again, it's like 100 feet from the northern wetland. So I don't think it's a problem to include this in the application. I know Mr. Liebman's here and wants to address the recommendation about relocating the shed that's near the southern wetland. But I do recommend the agency issue a permit with the conditions in staff report.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Mr. Liebman, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency. I have been asked to request from the agency that the shed be able to remain where it is. The applicant has a child that is sight challenged, and they use that shed getting to it as part of the training that they're doing with the child. And we have the area behind the shed is very densely wooded. And they request, excuse me, and they request that the shed be able to remain.
Yep. I think we lost you, Larry.
He was going to say, request that it should be allowed to remain in place.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, you were coughing a little bit beforehand. We wanted to make sure we didn't have to call 911 and send them to your house.
Thank you very much. I'm fine and healthy. Thank you, Brian.
Good. Glad to hear it. Bob, what do you feel about the request for the shed, given your analysis of the site?
It appears to me the shed's just placed on landscape ties. It doesn't have a foundation. It's a prefabricated structure. I don't think it's an issue given the circumstances and the request and the planting plan that's been provided.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Agency questions or comments for Mr. Liebman? No? Public questions or comments?
I see none.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, sure. Motion to approve with the special conditions listed, but modifying special condition 1 to eliminate the words "and relocation of the shed."
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I'll
Klaus.
second. Okay,
Anyone opposed? Seeing no indication, this passes 600.
excellent. Okay, thank you. Moving on. 2021-103, 21 Wingate Road, Rocco v. DeAndrea, Inc. for J. Vince Glenn, dredging of a pond. Mr. Clausy, please.
Right, this is a pretty straightforward hydraulic dredging project. The material will be placed on 21 Wingate Road in an area that's a lawn, with the exception of one cherry tree that would need to be removed. That's indicated there in the sort of south end of the fill pile, the sediment disposal pile. None of the disposed fill encroaches into the flood zone or the floodway of the brook. And the applicant is getting the sediment tested to ensure that it is suitable for reuse on a residential property. There are 3 other properties involved in this project due to the joint ownership of the ponded portion of the brook. The applicant has gotten consent from 2 of the 3 owners, but without the consent of the 3rd owner, the project's just, practically speaking, not something that could be done really. So I recommend the agency delay until such time as we get the consent from the 3rd owner, or they provide a plan that shows some kind of a dredging that doesn't involve that property.
Bob, could we approve on the condition that written approval from the 3rd owner is provided prior to any on-site activities?
I would not advise the agency do that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, anyone from the applicant wish to speak to this?
Hi, yes, Brian Smith, Rocco v. DeAndrea. The only statement I was gonna ask was to echo what Chairman Harris had said about asking for a pending approval. I'm sorry, condition approval with the condition of the 3rd authorization letter from the owner. But I think Director Sesto has already made her input on that. So I just wanted for the record that was the one question that I had. That's it.
Okay, very good.
I say that I think that the agency would be putting itself in a bad place should that 3rd owner take issue. Technically, we shouldn't even have received the application without all the authorizations in place.
Okay, good point.
Just a curiosity, Pat, can this be an agent approval when the 3rd owner ties in?
No, because it's in a wetland and a watercourse, so those are not eligible for agents.
Okay, very good. Public questions or comments? Okay. No, we will delay that. Thank you. Next up is 2021-104, 94 Riversville Road. More Engineering, LLC, for Stephen Byrne, construction of a pool 36 feet from wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
Okay, this house was constructed back in 97, well, under a 97 permit, and that approval included a pool and patio behind the house. The approval also, so I really don't have an issue with the pool. The drainage system is one of the, again, a pool overflow system. And I would recommend that part of the roof leaders be tied into this. Currently, the roof leaders are piped underground to some unknown discharge point, probably right at the edge of the wetland. So that would be an ongoing benefit if a portion of the roof was tied into this system. Now, part of the 97 permit, they did have this retaining wall along the east side. I believe it's the east side of the house. Yeah. That was supposed to be a demarcation feature with an buffer undisturbed between that wall and the wetland. Part of the area between the wall and the wetland is a reserve area. It's not even the applicant's property. But currently there's lawn down here. There had been some shrub plantings or restoration plantings that were put in there under the 97 permit. Those are gone. I'm not saying the current owner did it, but I'm just saying, given the current condition, I would recommend that the agency require this area to be maintained in a natural state as a meadow with no more than twice a year mowing. And I'm saying meadow because there are a lot of invasives in the wetland. And if we try to plant woody plants in there, they're going to get overrun by these invasives, just the way that the woody vegetation in the wetland currently is. So, regular mowing will keep the invasives down and give some habitat for of a natural nature in there. So recommend the agency issue a permit with the conditions, and they include specifications as I just described.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Anyone from the applicant wish to add anything to what Bob has stated?
Good evening, members of the board. Brian Muller here, Muller Engineering LLC, licensed professional engineer, state of Connecticut. We have no problem with the special conditions as Mr. Clossie has outlined. But I would like to just note that it is a new homeowner. They have no problem with removing the turf area, as Mr. Clossie mentions, or maintaining this area as a meadow. So that will be completed during this project. Also tying some roof leaders in from the backyard. That should be a fairly easy process, and that can be done as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Muller? From the agency, any public questions or comments?
None.
None? Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve with the standard and special conditions listed.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jay seconds. Okay, Pat?
Anyone opposed? Seeing no indication, this passes 6-0-0.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. Next up, 2021-106, 11 Cartridge Hill Lane, Joseph F. Rizzoli, PE LLC for Darrell Wyland and Andrew Barenblum. Demolition and construction of a single-family residence, driveway, greenhouse, septic system, and drainage system, installation of enhancement plantings in and adjacent to wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
The record should reflect that Mr. Rogers was to the site.
Yes, okay. I had recommended delay on this in my staff report after the applicant and their consultants reviewed the staff report. They decided they would try to address the issues that were raised and have asked for postponement tonight.
Okay, very good. We will look forward to seeing it next month. Okay, I will make a motion to receive applications 1 through 11 on tonight's final agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jay got it.
Okay.
Anyone opposed? Seeing no indication, the applications are received 6-0-0.
Great. And finally, there are 6 agent approval permits on tonight's agenda. Are there any agency or public questions on those items? No? Okay. Very good. 8:37.
Nice.
Very good. I think that does it for tonight. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And we will see you next month. Stay safe and have a great week.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you for audience was very good tonight. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.